Dee Dee Blanchard did not suffer from Munchausen syndrome by proxy. The whole Munchausen syndrome by proxy thing came up. It was a fabricated defense made up by Michael Stanfield, who was Gypsy Rose Blanchard's public defender. When he got assigned the case, or took the case, whatever, he openly admitted that he had no defense for this case. He thought Gypsy was done for, okay? So, now mind you, in this time when she's trying to come up with defense strategies with her attorney, never once did Gypsy say anything about Dee Dee was harming her, okay? So, I don't know how, this part of the story, I don't know how, but Michael Stanfield first decided he was going to use a battered spouse defense somehow. Now, I don't understand how that would have worked, since Dee Dee and Gypsy are a mother and daughter, not spouses. But Michael Stanfield had his paralegal who went by Patty, and she went into social media groups that were following the case. She went in there and kind of was tossing around the whole battered spouse defense. She got a feel for it, and people weren't buying this. So that's when Michael Stanfield decided he was going to go with the Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Now, it's common knowledge you cannot diagnose a deceased person with Munchausen. Dee Dee did not meet the criteria. And still, at this point, Gypsy still has yet to say that Dee Dee was harming her in any way. So I speculate that Mr. Stanfield, he had seen Gypsy was a sick child, so he thought, hey, let's try this. And then Patty, the paralegal, goes back into these groups, and lo and behold, people are buying this because Gypsy was sick. She had numerous procedures and whatnot. As common knowledge now, Gypsy had admitted to Nicholas Godejohn in one of the videos that we got through the FOIAs. She told Nicholas Godejohn that she knew she could walk. So here's one of the surgeries, was a muscle biopsy on her leg. That would have never been done. Dee Dee did not push that. Gypsy knew she could walk, she just chose not to tell Dee Dee. And, in my opinion, that's because she liked the attention that she was getting. Dee Dee was concerned about this child, why this child wasn't walking. Gypsy had a surgery, I think it was one of her eye surgeries for her strabismus. Noted, you could see in the pictures of her being young how her eyes were crossed, and her strabismus, that was a necessary surgery. Okay? She had a seizure during the surgery, which temporarily paralyzed her. But she did end up getting feeling back in her legs. But she decided not to tell Dee Dee. Dee Dee did not force Gypsy in that wheelchair. And people say Dee Dee didn't know Gypsy could walk. Yes, I believe she did, because we can see in pictures where Dee Dee is actually pushing the wheelchair, where Gypsy is sitting crisscross applesauce in the wheelchair. If she was paralyzed, she would have never been able to do that. Then we have the Gypsy had a failure to thrive. She was born microcephaly, which is a small head, and she was born with a high palate, which makes it difficult for her to swallow. And she had some food aversions, so she was not gaining weight. That is where the feeding tube came in place. Dee Dee did not force a feeding tube on Gypsy. Gypsy was very tiny and was dangerously low in weight. It was medically necessary. Then we know Gypsy had asthma. She had some GERD, some acid reflux and such, and her salivary glands. During her sleep studies, which she also had sleep apnea, during her sleep studies, they had noted that saliva would pool in the back of her throat, causing her to choke. During the days, she was even drooling. They started to treat this with Botox injections. And when that stopped working, eventually, after a couple of years, I believe, that's when they removed, I believe, only 2 salivary glands. That was the extent of Gypsy's surgeries. So where are all these unnecessary surgeries that would back up a Munchausen syndrome by proxy? Where? Where's all the her teeth? Her teeth. In the emails from prison, she even says she's only missing a few teeth. She had a lot of crowns on her teeth, a lot of the silver caps. Oh, yes, some seizure medications, which she needed. Can cause, some tooth decay, but in her dental records, it is noted she had extremely poor oral hygiene. As we know, she was drinking a bottle up until she was 20-something years old, until the crime. So her teeth, she had bottle wrapped. Dee Dee did not take her into a dentist and say, rip my daughter's teeth out. Gypsy had the remainder of her teeth removed in prison and then took care of the rest when she got out. So that is a false rumor there. So where is this that Dee Dee was harming Gypsy? Where? And then in 2008, they discovered a microdeletion, 1q21.1. In 2011, Gypsy found out she had this through some genetic testing. So all of this, the high palate, the microcephaly, the asthma, the poor muscle tone, the failure to thrive, all of this was because of her microdeletion. Dee Dee dedicated her life to taking care of that child because she did not know how long Gypsy was going to live. The doctors didn't know what was wrong with her until they diagnosed her in 2011, 1q21.1. So, anything Gypsy went through was medically necessary. No Munchausen syndrome by proxy on Dee Dee's part. And this is what really blows my mind. As soon as Gypsy signed that plea deal, all investigations stopped. So the DA, the district attorney who was prosecuting Gypsy, they did not even continue to pour through these medical records, the Facebook data, these videos, these incriminating videos to Nicholas Godejohn. Had they have done their due diligence, instead of trying to save money and give this woman a plea deal, they would have seen that this story was fake. They would have seen, but once that plea deal is signed, it's over with. It's done. There's no more investigating. No more man hours are put into it. Like I said, they would have seen it. And she would have spent her life in prison. And here's what I want to know. Everyone that's still believing this story, put yourself in this situation, okay? You're being medically harmed. You're having unnecessary medical procedures forced upon you. You're being treated horribly as a child, right? And you just don't know what to do. So for 2 years, you start planning to rectify this situation and get rid of the person that's harming you. You plan it meticulously, so you think. You get caught. When you're in that police station and that detective tells you, we are charging you with first-degree murder, you're looking at the possibility of the death penalty or the rest of your life in prison. If you were really harmed, what would your first words be? Mine? I felt like I had to do it. She was hurting me from the time I was a young child. She was forcing all these procedures upon me. She was harming me. I was scared. I thought that I was going to pass away if I didn't put a stop to it. She can't say she was scared of Dee Dee, and that's why she didn't tell, because Dee Dee was gone by this point. If she was truly harmed, she would have told them people as soon as she found out she was looking at spending the rest of her life in prison. Why didn't she say she was hurting me? Because she wasn't. Dee Dee was nothing but was a good mother. She had her flaws, yeah, but she was a good mother. She was not harming Gypsy, and she did not suffer from Munchausen syndrome by proxy.